So it really started out with the typical dad-mom question on the way to school. I'm like, oh, kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my daughter's like, I want to be a veterinarian. My one youngest daughter was like, I want to be a singer. And then in the back I hear, I want to be an F1 driver. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you mean IndyCar, right? Because I assumed that F1 wasn't on TV at the time. And I just assumed, I'm like, that's what he meant. But it wasn't what he meant. And I think it was because of a car he played with.
I've always loved cars, especially from a young age. Like, I played with matchboxes as long as I can remember. I've watched the movie Cars about a gazillion times. And I first really got into racing when we started going to this indoor karting place just locally in Virginia Beach. And then after that, my love for racing just kind of grew.
He had found a matchbox of a Mario Andretti car, but it was an F1 car. And he's like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, okay. You're 8 years old, it'll change. And it just never went away. And we found a local go-kart track that we started going to. The guys who worked there made the mistake of telling Hunter he could try these new go-karts if he went fast enough. And so he ended up going fast enough and he got to try the new go-karts there.
He became very adamant that every Saturday he wanted to go and race at this go-kart track, and then it just kind of progressed from there.
So we went through the kind of the go-kart route. I ran into an individual named Dan Mitchell from, came out of England. He was helping with some karting stuff on a race team.
We had a couple of Formula cars there, and I went over, had a chat with Hunter, had a chat with Rob, and Hunter came and sat in the car and he's like, can we start it? Can we turn it on? What does it sound like? And we start it up, and it comes 5 o'clock at night and we're trying to close the tent and he's still sat in the car, and we're like, get out of the car and go home.
Dan Mitchell originally saw him as, let's get him in a race car and see if he's got the capabilities. He's like, I'm gonna need about 10 days. I just need to see if he listens, whether he's willing to push the limits at the ages he's at. And he's like, I've done this long enough, I can tell. Give me 10 days and I'll be able to tell.
I think he thought he liked go-karting, and then when he got into a race car, he never wanted to drive a go-kart again.
He coached Hunter like he was a European kid. He taught Hunter about the car, the mechanics, the data, everything. And the way he approached it from the beginning was, this kid's going overseas to go to F1, and I'm gonna make sure he's ready for it. And he comes by and he doesn't think anything different, and he's doing 160, and I almost threw up. Because the difference between 120 miles an hour and 160 miles an hour is just vividly different. Like, you could tell, and I was like, oh my gosh.
So I'm kind of the horse mom and he's the race dad. I mean, I want to go with him, but we have 2 girls here too, so we just kind of, split up and divide and conquer.
For the longest time, we'd been practicing. She would come out to the track and she would never literally go up to the fence and watch the car go by. And she's like, I just can't do it. Hunter pushed her and pushed her. He's like, just sit down with me. Just sit down with me and watch a race. Just sit down. And I believe it was in 2019. She's like, all right. She felt fine. It was in our own living room. It was our own couch. And in that crash, a couple of the kids got hurt really bad, and one of the kids was killed. And it wasn't until the next morning that I realized, when she woke me up at 5 in the morning and had me come out to the front porch, how much it affected her. She couldn't get the view of Hunter being that kid out of her head.
There was a driver by the name of Antoine that had passed away in that race, and still years later, it's very difficult for me. Sorry.
And she's like, are we being bad parents? Are we doing the wrong thing? And there were even parts where I thought the same thing. I'm like, is he too young? Ultimately, I think we came to, what's the alternative? We have a kid who is driven. He works out. He goes to the gym every day. He's doing simulator. That has to go somewhere. That drive has to go towards something. That addiction to speed or whatever it is has to go somewhere. And we know where it's going here. We know it's a path. We know that it's what he loves, and we have we have some control over that, in the sense of allowing it to go that route.
I didn't want to crush his dream. I wanted him to go for what he wanted to do, and I was not going to be the one to stop him. We actually sat down on those stairs right there, and he's like, so what do you think about buying an F4 car? And I was like, well, I mean, okay, if that's what we have to do for Hunter to get where he's going. And then it was like, then it turned into 2 F4 cars. And, at the time, Hunter was 14, and he was kind of explaining the path to me about, this is what he's going to do. And then when he's 16, he's going to go to Europe. And I was thinking, okay, well, we'll just see, how it goes, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
And then in 2020, we put him in F4, and he won the championship. And so we were like, holy cow, this is real.
It was very impressive. I think that was the first time everyone really did look at him and go, oh wow, like maybe this kid's the real deal.
He was the youngest person to ever win any F4 championship, not just in America, any of the F4 championships. He could have gone to drive for Indy, could have gone and, made a choice to go somewhere else, but he really has set his sights on the highest level of motorsport, which is F1.
As you go up in the tiers from F4 to F1, you get less and less practice time, or it becomes more and more expensive.
It's a very, very expensive sport. So any driver that is driving needs support. The teams need support, the drivers need support.
But by that point on, I was like, yes, I've won the F4 championship. I can celebrate it for probably celebrate it for a week, and then after that, it's time to get back to work and start thinking about what's ahead for me.
So, obviously when you have a father that was a Navy SEAL, you're talking about a level of focus and intensity and ability that is, from the most elite fighting force in the world. And, he has been brought up around these guys that have that level of determination, intensity. They are never going to give up. They're never going to give up till the mission is accomplished. And that is Hunter's sensibility.
I think one thing that helps Hunter being exposed to what we do in this facility is really it's who we cater to in this facility. And it's wounded, ill, and injured veterans that have served our country, some active duty forces that are still serving in this country. They're getting through these injuries so they can get back the capabilities that they once had, or be able to get back onto the battlefield where our country needs them.
And you start to gravitate towards that mindset in those individuals. And these are guys who have went through a lot of stuff, but they're still in there and they're still pushing. They're not making excuses. They're just doing the work. And that has an effect on them. And those are the type of people who've helped build Hunter into who he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tough cookie, a real tough cookie in a nut job, really, he's crazy, but that's what it needs to be.
But then again, Hunter is his own person. Hunter is establishing what he wants to be. We live in a beach town, things are kind of laid back. But I like that there's that calmness there, at least on the outside. We always talk about, be like a duck, nice and calm on top of the water, but underneath, man, those legs are just churning.
So we were at Red Bull Ring. I think it was the sprint race, the first race, maybe 20 laps. Hunter on, I think, lap 5, went into that turn, pretty sharp turn. Another kid came in and basically speared his front wheel, and it snapped the wheel out of his hand.
Went off the track over the speed bumps, and the sheer intensity of the bump broke his wrist on lap 7 of the race. And any other person would have come off the track I think my wrist is broken, right? Not Hunter. He kept driving the entire race. He finished the race with a broken wrist.
And I can only imagine you're driving a car with no power steering, racing against 30 of the best drivers at that age. And it just showed me what character he had, what kind of grit. He's extremely aggressive. He has been from the get-go. He is not afraid to, what I would call, throw a little NASCAR into the F1 world, where he's not afraid to throw the car in there. I think it's good because I think you have to be aggressive in this sport. But I think also over time he's had to learn patience.
I know it frustrated the heck out of him not being able to finish the season, but I think there's this inner drive in Hunter, and maybe it's a piece of this Americana that's in him to never quit and never give up. It was a hard pill to swallow, but he understands. But now coming back, right, it's his decision. He's the one telling us, I want to come back better. I'm like, all right, buddy, well, here's the chance, right? We have a lot of extra time to focus right now and get you back there better than you were before.
So we spent a lot of time away from home. I spent a lot of time away from my business. You know, the rest of the family had to give up a lot of stuff, and they were all willing to do it. We sat down and we talked about it, and you know, we all made the decision together.
As I've gotten older, I realized all the money that's going into it, everything that my parents sacrificed, my sisters have sacrificed, just all the people have helped me made it sacrifice for me. So I really just try and make them proud, make myself proud, and keep pushing.
We're very excited because now Hunter is going on to the Carlin team, and he will be the #1 driver and the #1 seat on that team next year. And that is a team that has cultivated quite a few of the drivers that you see right now driving for the F1 teams.
I can say that just the way Hunter is, he's going to be a great steward for whatever he does. He's going to represent himself well, he's going to represent his industry well, he's going to represent our country of America extremely well.
The car's been really good. All the development we've been doing has been great. And then once I do well this year, making the step to Formula 2, Carlin has a really good F2 team, so just to have another good year in F2, and then I think my chances of making it to F1 are really high.